I'm going to read something from Chrysanthemum 2020 Literary Anthology from the Chrysanthemum Literary Society and Goldfish Press, also put together by my good friend Kun Moon. And these poems also appear in Salt. And Salt is just a small chapbook of poems from the sea. And I'll read one that I've been looking forward to read because I kind of like the sound of it. This is a gooey duck song.
This is great.
You will. I am lovely to some, a giant among clams. Have I said I love sand, a little thick mud, a blanket of seaweed keeps seagulls away. I live for the tide. Oh, sweet salt I sing through my long rubber hose, a neck, not a nose. A perfect throat. Although I am blind, I feel the vibrato of rain. One day I will sing basso profundo in a chorus of mollusks and bivalves. We shall sing the great Te Deum in the key of C. So that's my hymn to the great gooey duck. So I kind of thought of these poems, many of these poems, as if these great sea creatures themselves were singing. So another one is the mussels, the wonderful blue mussels that line the rocks on the beach. Mussels. We're colonists nestled among the barnacles, indigo purple robed choristers, tethered by our green beards to the rocks where we multiply, chant sutras at the turn of the tide. When we open, the pale colors of sunrise glow iridescent. Sometimes in moonlight, we hum the blues, soft and low. At the awakening, our voices will fill the air, rise like incense to heaven, our shells clicking wildly like castanets. One thing about the oyster that not everybody knows is that the oyster starts out as a male and becomes female over time. So they are hermaphrodites. So here's a song of the oyster. I sing of the sea, its wash and tickle, of sea wrack and sea worms, surf smelt and seaweed. I sing flute songs in all scales. Once I sang tenor, virile and slim. Now, full-fleshed and female, I fill octaves with song. My shell is baroque. I lie on a chaise. Delicate ruffles fringe my pale body, filtering, feeding me. I grow fat. Oh, sing with me, sisters, of the echo of shell light. Dear little brothers, all oysters together, sing hosannas with me. So this book is just kind of filled with a lot of light verse. Not many poets write light verse, and I haven't written a lot of it, but I don't know, this kind of strikes me because we have a cabin down on Harstein Island, which is a place nobody knows about, but it's a place I like to walk on the beach, and I see all these sea creatures, and I have, I guess, imaginary conversations with them. So here's a poem about the mudworm. You don't see mudworms very often, but here's an imaginary conversation with the mudworm. The mudworm's music. From deep in the muck, layers of harmonics as if the mud were singing. Mudworms hum as they wriggle and turn. The ground quivers, pulses, and even those without ears, like the worms, listen, and the long dead perk up a bit to hear the worm's song with jazz variations. So that's what this book is about, just kind of I guess just kind of funny imaginary conversations with creatures that of course make no sound at all. So I imagine them singing. And this one, the horse clam, I don't know if you've all seen a horse clam. They look sort of like a gooey duck, but they're not. And one thing about the horse clam is that they never really close their shell. So they're called gappers. So this is a poem about a gapper. The horse clam's aria. This one he's singing an aria. I'm known for my largesse, called gapper, for my girths exposed. My shell is a tight fit. I share my skirt mantle with two pea crab who clean it. I'm content in this muck. Let the world come to me. Each wave brings newness in the brine. I have tasted the oceans of India and Japan, and once something very nice from the sea of Madagascar. So that's what this book is about. Just kind of some light things from the wonderful beaches of our beautiful Salish Sea. But I also write other things. Lately, I have been writing about extinct birds. So I've been in search of birds that have gone extinct. The first one, because these are kind of sad stories. The first one is the great auk. And these are sonnets, but loose sonnets. I mean, they are rhymed, and I usually don't write in rhyme, but somehow I'm writing now in rhyme. But the structure is the sonnet structure, but I'm not keeping the line lengths that would be in a more formal sonnet. But they are rhymed and they are sonnet. Other than that, they're sonnet structure. This is called The Extinction of the Great Auk in 1844. The true story, this. The auks came ashore in May to breed and lay their one large egg on barren rock, no nest. Remote, the rocks were swept by Arctic spray. Bird colonies gathered there to mate and rest. Months at large in roaring sea, birds at home in northern depths, they found their way to Iceland's Eldi. Two great auk, their final egg. Two fishermen rode out to kill them for their fat, their meat. Their egg, a misstep, crushed. The men grabbed the ox, snapped their necks. They bled the birds, cut them up, and rushed to sell their meat piece by piece, the bodies on a stick, sold the skin, feathers and all, on the road to Reykjavik. So that's the extinction of the great ox. The next one is the heath hen, Martha's Vineyard, 1932. This native grouse was likely eaten that first Thanksgiving dinner, not wild turkey as the story's been spun, and who's to say which bird's better? Early colonists found the heath hen to be delicious, plump and fat, hunted them in barrens and glens, served them up with fine muskrat. Dun-colored birds with reddish hue, they ranged south to Virginia from Maine. The last one everybody knew as Booming Ben, nested in Martha's Vineyard, with no companion save the crows. When he flew, the heath hen's final chapter closed. That's the end of the heath hen. And this one, the end of the dodo bird, Mauritius Islands, 1600s. The birds rushed to see the ship sail into the bay. They gathered round as sailors came ashore. The beach was filled with noise, a wild melee as Dodo stared at them, called out, "Dodo!" Large, fat, and flightless birds with varicolored beaks, they had no fear of men. As a dodo was taken by a sailor, the birds began to cry and screech. The others called out, "Dodo!" ran to help their kin. Gentle dodos swarmed around the hunter, and by this act were gathered in. The sailors clubbed them all, their plunder, fresh meat, a feast with good Dutch gin. Rats came too, cleared their nests without a struggle. The last dodo, a chick or egg, somewhere in the jungle. So those are three. I've got I think three more, and I find no shortage of birds going extinct. So I know I have more subjects. So let me turn now to some other subjects. I began, I think in your site I sent to Leopoldo a poem called Playground. Are you keeping track of time, Leopoldo? Because I didn't.
You're muted, Leopoldo.
Okay. Well, I'll just read Playground and trust that I have.
So you've only been reading for about 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. So I have Playground. And a quote from Albert Einstein that says, "Play is the highest form of research," says Einstein. Hooking one leg over, we pushed off the bars head first toward the damp asphalt. Air grazed the ground. We rose pumping at the top to pause, fall again and again like mechanical dolls. Shoulders wrenched up, the force of our bodies hurled, sound and vision blurred. There was only the spinning world, slick friction of the bar, burning our hands behind our knees. Some fell, slamming to ground, grinding pebbles into old wounds. Children ran screaming to hopscotch or jump rope, chasing or being chased. Those not brave were pushed aside. A teacher sailed at the edge of the chain link fence. Children searching for safety trailed her like small boats. We had no words yet to tell about the smooth polish of cold steel. What could we say of muscles that throbbed and ached, of launching out into whatever joy we could find?
Nice.
And another subject of childhood that was just accepted for the Amsterdam Quarterly. The subject, he asked for subjects on weather, and we don't have very much weather where we live, right? Thank God. We just have ordinary, lovely weather. We don't have things you name. You know, we don't name our weather, but in Florida they do. And I lived in Florida as a child, and this is a memory I had of being in a hurricane. Hurricane. The alchemy of water doesn't change no matter where it lives. It fills what it wants, enters all low things. The wind can be wicked like that. Once it blew away half our house. We lived in the other half, watched our rooms fly away, screaming as they went. Rain came after, bedeviled us for days, filled the streets up to our knees, made us dance for it, our shoes on our heads. It's a memory of a hurricane. And this is a very recent poem. Called Skunk Cabbage, also from the Parstein Islands. Skunk cabbage. They nest in bog mud like yellow birds, where the creek gathers itself into the plenty of a pond. I was minding my own business on a path through dark woods, and I saw their light-filled bodies, standing in order along the stream. In the green noise of a new spring, they beckoned me like Van Gogh's butter moons. Their lanterns, the only light in a dank swamp. The breeze flared a pandemonium of odor. I don't suppose anything loves them, except perhaps flies and beetles. But what could be better at this fraught time than these golden bodies? They rise in stiffness through the mud, upright stalks, a red spike in a gilded wrapper, enormous leaves. And I'm on my knees before them in this empire of damp. These are monarchs of dark, sovereigns of stench. I worship their giant leaves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, well, this is my last poem that I'm going to read. This is called Overflight. I'm not sure I've got my copy here. Overflight. In the North Country, now it is spring. The great flocks pass over us in flight. In the cool night air, high above us in a stream, billions of birds fly wing to wing. Sparrows, goldfinches, northern flickers, nuthatches, swallows, cedar waxwings, even the whimbrel from deep in South America. So many birds, Doppler radar lights up to show a solid mass moving along the coast, pressing toward Canada and beyond. We cannot hear or see them at their height, calling out, drafting one behind another, feathered limbs lifting, bearing them onward. We lie in our beds, roiled in sleep. Down duvets, our only comfort in the dark. We are locked in our homes as they soar overhead. They are indifferent to our suffering, as nature is. Still, there is a kind of solace in these birds, in their passage, in their wild wings.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Spotlight.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I noticed a couple of my family members are on board tonight, which tells me that we're all on speaking terms, even during the lockdown. Actually, we've had to meet on Zoom for family meetings. But I'm so happy to be here tonight. I think poetry is a really good. I've been a skeptic about distance learning, and I know a lot of that is going around. And I think poetry, just from what I'm hearing and feeling about tonight, is perfect for distance learning. So I'm your, if Susan wants to do it, I'm your student. So I have a little pile of poems, a couple of them from the book and a couple of them from a book I'm now compiling. And then I brought my guitar, and my wife Antonia's just off the screen there with her castanets. So if all goes well, we'll be able to tack on some music at the end with some flamenco music with castanets. So I'll rattle through the poems first. This is Innocence. We now learn that matter in the universe is aligned in a grid, that each molecule knows its mark as if order came first, that the stars know the moment of our birth as if knowledge came first, that each canvas knows what it wants to become as if image came first, that the tiger knows when to strike as if power came first, that prayer is answered as if God came first, and as all systems fail, all gods flee, all stars fall, and as knowledge is overrun by innocence, something else comes into being. Prepare.
Ask how your sound level is.
Is the sound level okay at this point?
Really good.
Oh, good. Next poem, Trees. Trees bear the symptoms of an ailing earth. Their very shadows recede as supple wind-danced leaves harden and shrivel under the same moon that once flooded vibrant cells with photons, the bringers of divine light in the universe. Trees offer their loins as shelters for the beings who scurry about in the summer nights, hoarding what tree brings forth in fruit and nut, offering the strong comfort of their trunk for the back of the weary in mid-journey to some distant home. Tree goes nowhere, but it runs everywhere beneath the soil, on highways of roots and rhizomes, sending runners toward the river, the lake, to the depths of the aquifer. Hunted for their planks and shingles, rafters and joists, hunted for bridges, fence posts and utility poles, igniting now in the hearths of the world. What now happens to tree will happen to all of us. Even the seekers who mean no harm to life. What happens to tree in storm, in fire, and in drought will happen to us all. Our dreams, our music, our merriment, and the simple meal in a carved wooden bowl, I now enjoy beneath a branch whose nest, ringing out with the voices of the newly born, recreates the living architecture of the world. Okay, now we're going to leave the planet. Let's go. This is called astronomy, and it's supposed to be, as Susan was concerned too about, let's keep it a little bit lighthearted during the pandemic. So this is my comic relief. Astronomy. You asked for a chocolate truffle right after refusing my offer of the sun, moon, and stars. You responded to my lust with the names of every bird flitting through the plum tree outside our kitchen window. Astronomy has always worked for you. With precision, you practice the gravitational pull that holds fast the orbits of comets, even the ones that come our way only in a lifetime. And now we get serious again. Choose your Armageddon. Will it be the environment? Will it be World War III? Will it be the pandemic? Well, let's go with the environment first. I nominate the environment as a candidate for the end of times. This is called Abandoned Hive. When gatherers of the nectar of experience glimpse a unique dawn, sensations of touch and smell, the chattering of a scrum of waxwings in the waning moments of a heaving day. When the gatherers themselves abandon the hive, something is wrong in the field, amiss in the meadow, foul in the air, brackish in the water. The glistening wings of love poisoned by fool's gold logic, sweet nectar gone rancid, seeping into the barren earth. What is left are drops of remorse, ponds dried to one tear, hands clutching darkness, slivers of ruined artifice, fouling the empty chambers of life. So let's go to another choice for the end times. So if it's not the environment, it could be war. It could be World War III. If it's just a Roman numeral, I hope it doesn't come true. So this is called asylum. It kind of folds in between immigration and war, asylum. Some wars don't really end. They are plowed under like a ruined crop whose deadly spores float the airwaves, the same waves that carried the voices of those who had ruled all along, even when there appeared to be free speech and lively discourse. The world of perceptions is on the attack from outer space and from the end of a spoon. The real world cowers and stares at the morning paper, forgets what it is eating, partially digesting. The executioners now practice the social graces, right down to their warm smiles, pertinent words, and rapid-fire speech. I am at the table, hoping for a morning, a veteran of last night's assault of dreams, telling me that the refugee problem has spread to me and to the refuge that I just attained last Tuesday, after a lifetime of searching. Illusion of stasis when the earth is sending me to the four corners of the universe. Who is not an asylum seeker? Who is not a castaway from known coordinates to the unknown? Whatever poem is next has got to be comic. By contrast, by juxtaposition, this has to be a lighter poem, and it's shorter as well. But I want it to be the title of my next poetry book. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just saying, right? In good company. The name of it is I Bend My Ink. I bend my ink toward perfect worlds. Scripture appears on stone where faces have never shown. I gather verse in nets of light, liberating song to rescue ruined dreams of a drowning night. Since our histories have twisted all that is to be, I pause before opening books, pause to read the epic twists that flow along the branches of a tree, the winged throb of honeybee. If you see me stand alone, empty-handed, silent, know that constellations crowd my thoughts and sense my blood. Don't ask me to explain. The next one is, well, I'm almost there. We've got to leave time for, how's the time? We've got to leave time for music. I'm going to read fast. This is called Ambition, so I suppose it's a pseudo-moral lesson, so don't take it too seriously. Make sure everything you create is worthless. It wasn't bought, cannot be sold, or must I sell these words like a beloved daughter, or a slave who rises with the same sun that unfolds morning glories. Make sure everything you say is meaningless. It is meaning that creates the enemy, meaning that demands apologies before our execution. Make sure every tune you sing has no end nor beginning, for all creation begins with a conjunction and a tapered decrescendo that conjoins it to the voice of eternal silence. Make sure love is rarely stated. Be in the state of love, without declaration and with rare demonstration. Hold hands with the horizon, though it lie beyond reach, and leave all keys in their locks until both sides of the door achieve equality. Dance with the dawn only when asked, making sure your shoes were left in a dark closet alongside your identity. So let me end with this and rush to the guitar. This has an ironic title where, it doesn't prepare you very much. It's just called Calypso. Thank you. Thanks to the Greek. We slipped into this world with stylus and script and no craving for certainty in recipes that old age and pleasant chefs would someday deliver to an overdressed table. We snuck into this world with a bouquet of senses, a worthy match for Earth's spectacle of seasons, moon-made moods, well-crafted constellations. We spoke not during the great silence of the eclipse, cosmic literacy, our mother tongue, eyes mere nests for photons. We dwelt in now until eternity delivered its tired lecture on immortal works, enforcing a kind of history on those who invent the moment. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we turn to sound. Do we have a few minutes? So Antonia and I are in our little group Europatopia, and we do some flamenco together.
Hi, Antonia.
Hello.
Hi. So she has her castanets, and we'll start with a piece called Seguiria.
I hope we weren't too loud.
Wicked, yeah.
Whoa! I
Yeah.
tell you, you had me at flamenco, you know. But
Now look, invite us back. We'll do a show.
well, I've been putting.
Well, hi. I actually have two poems. They're both new poems. And the first one's a short little poem, and it's titled Under the Rainbow. The streets are empty, the city quiet, while spring boasts brilliant blossoms long awaited. This stillness, this unfamiliar stillness, makes one question, draws the eyes to greenery bursting on limbs. I turn up the stereo, drown out questions begging to be heard. There are no answers, not really. Only a new normal, which is not. I search for slippers in the sparseness, but I am not Alice, and this is not Wonderland. Okay, and excuse me. This next piece is called Poet, Painter, Protester. Our eyes met at a racial justice meeting. The woman beside you said she was your wife. My heart sank. Despite this, you came to me, wanted me, wouldn't be stopped. No one had been so sure, so steady about me. That first kiss, how you embraced my face in your hands, brought my lips to yours. My legs threatened to buckle beneath me. I relished your tales of revolutionary resistance, your reincarnation, past to present, your bright brushstrokes on canvas. The safety you gave, something I'd never known, unconditional love. We journeyed through the years back and forth, off and on, until the Northwest beckoned my heart. Despite the distance your love endured, stretched across those coastal miles until a sudden tide rushed in, took you one tsunami afternoon. Perhaps your surrender spoke of the change you nearly made but couldn't. Perhaps you were called by a greater spirit to help those oceans away, those for whom that tidal wave was not a metaphor. Many embrace your memory, Black Panther brothers, artists, poets, Baha'i. We never got to say goodbye.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm coming to join you from Palm Springs in California. So it's great to be here. I'm going to read 2 poems also. Incubus. I hear you from my bedroom, closing our house down for the night. Though I have already drawn the curtains, turned off the lights in the room where we no longer sit together. You still cling to me, though, a wounded predator that has sunk his teeth into his prey. Since I moved myself into the guest room, you don't remember to lock the back door before you come up. Though we both know when I find it open in the morning, I will be mortally afraid. Of course, the night terrors have returned. They lie in wait, clustered between bookshelves in the corner of the room, for that moment when I fall into sleep. What am I now willing to receive in the bed that was never ours? The mockingbird outside my window sings at nighttime in endless rising tones. Like it, I want to flaunt my agony through another song. I want to tell you not to press your hand upon my chest, because in my paralysis, I won't be able to feel you. Your tread on the stairs is no longer quiet, your step just so deliberate. Before you go into our room and settle into our bed, you pause and cough once, some nights twice, outside my door. And the next poem is fairly self-explanatory. It's entitled Divorced Because of Poetry. I creep downstairs at 2 a.m., steal the keys to your boy racer car, the keys you always leave on the granite counter, because it never occurred to you that I would. And what a sight am I, driving a silver grey Jaguar in my striped pajamas and high-heeled vintage Manolos. I have to laugh out loud. I have to shove the gear stick into sports mode. I have to career around jagged uphill bends, not meant for a night ride in a hipster-mobile. I stop where the road becomes impossibly narrow. To the right, the valley, ablaze with neon. To the left, the ocean, oily, luminous with stars and a golden rim of moon. An hour later, sated, I drive down the mountain, words in my head, jumping, rutting, locking antlers, a poem just blowing to be laid down on paper. And there you are at the kitchen table, your elbows staked out on my journal. I toss the keys down in front of you. They land in a place between love and hate. I kick off my stilettos before heading up to bed. You never even clock my smile. And the last words I ever say to you, darling, we have raccoons in the attic again.
There.
Today she is a rattle in my ear, a gurgle, as if a body of water moving stones, yet I speak to her as if she is the woman recumbent in the easy chair, a sly grin flickering on her face, her lips ready to break into the smile that engaged the whole person, ready to giggle, as if any memories I tell will light inside her being. Today, my mother delivers a babble. Today, she becomes a brook. Flow responds to gravity, moves seaward. At any boulder, surge circumnavigates, cannot stop. Pulled, pulled to the datum, out into the bay, where rivers from various sources mix, such that a swimmer, say a fish, senses only a single liquid slide over its scales. That's it, just one.
Okay, all right.
Spotlight AM, really good. Really nice poetry, our featured readers tonight. Thank you. Those were just really nice readings. Spending a lot of time with my 10-year-old son and my wife these days, probably more than I want to, but a mixture of homeschooling and work and full of challenges. But here's an old poem about my wife from some time ago. I've updated it because there's a number of years in it. Now it's 18 years. So it's called Just for Fun, Just for Fun. My wife is making gingerbread on the kitchen counter with a red hat on and her hair curling out from behind the ear. She says it's today's one creative effort, and mantras blackstrap molasses over and over just for fun. She complains that I never write poems about her anymore, that those early verses were just my way of bedding her. She's right, of course. 18 years spooning her to sleep, and only now do I discover another good reason for writing poems. Just for fun.
Nice.
Now, my wonderful wife's amazing, extremely talented Broadway performer, acted alongside Tom Hanks, and just an amazing musician. She died a couple years ago, and today's her birthday. So the family carries the weight of that, much like so much of the country right now is carrying the weight of loved ones who either are not accessible or maybe who have even passed on. But it's a weighty day in the family. And she really spent time with my poems. It was quite an honor, and she was a writer herself, especially songwriter. But she liked this particular one, Stones 3. I've written a bunch of stone-themed poems. Stones 3. I watch the stones in my garden, the way they rest upon the earth. Their edge lines and hues read like ancient texts about reclaiming some beloved homeland. These stones hold everything ever given to them. When I am old and resting in the evening light, I hope to cease counting time, to cease all new beginnings, I want God to receive me like one of these stones in still life solitude. Time shapes our lives with a firm, unforgiving hand, as if everything matters. Sunlight on wet leaves, shadow behind the basalt column, the opening of the eye. That'll do. Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks, Leopoldo, and indeed, thanks for having me, like Claire from Southern California, but our hearts in the Pacific Northwest nonetheless. So I was going to read one poem. It has sort of fits a theme that the featured poets had, which is trees and wood. My poem's I just wrote a couple of days ago, and it's called My Father's Cane. Sometimes when I'm writing a poem, especially if it's got some tactical feeling, I like to have the object with me. And as it turns out, I can show you my father's cane. Here it is. Another aspect, of course, is it has to do sort of with the past of generations or transitions. Probably a number of us have looked in the mirror one day and thought, oh, gee, that looks like my dad or my mom. So this is kind of about the transitions. It's a little story, really, and it's pretty simple. Long ago, I was in Central District of Hong Kong and found this cane in the store and decided to make a nice Christmas present for my dad. He had it a number of years. Eventually, it came back to me, and here we are. Here we are. My father's cane. It has a certain rustic elegance that caught my eye in Central decades past. Carved like my father out of English oak. Level with my hip, the smooth crook braced me as I leaned hard in a casual stance. And since his height was near the same, I took our equal measure as a sign to give the cane to Dad. No orthopedic rod for invalids. The lacquered staff is strong enough to crack a skull or bear the load of years. The grain, the knots feel near alive. Against my palm, I bought it in Hong Kong, a Christmas present. Dad, by then unsteady on his feet, made use of it until he had no further need. Like rain to sea, the gift wound back. The giver has it still. Resting against the bookcase in my study, my father's cane waits patiently for me. Thank you very much.
Now in the spotlight.
Whoa, spotlighted. This is a first. Hi, everyone. Beautiful poems, lovely music. Oh, thank you for the rhythm. Thank you for the company, all of you. Keeping with themes, I won't read about trees, but I will read a poem about spring. Spring. Rising and bursting through, the petals unfurling, pushing hardly, without effort, yet mightily forthright in their tiny stream. A ray is cast, the branch bends, now slightly taut and curvaceous, luscious, this living outside the husk.
Nice.
Thank you. Do I have time for one more, Leopold?
Yes, yes, you have time for one more.
Okay, this one's a bit heavier. As the era kind of beckons, there's this one's for Ahmaud Aubrey. Ghost shadows, earth bodies. Walking up a city street, I approach a man approaching me. Our earth brains anticipating how it'll go down. His darkened skin carries a dream to be seen, maybe not directly in the eyes, but not averted. Here on this sidewalk where we intersect, no crossing of the street. See, I dream to be witness to the glorious pride in his approach, confident gait, shoulders broad, sheer panther in his natural state, without the posturing walls between us. I prefer Duchenne smiles with the people that I greet, to look past a past to when our otherness was celebrated. In the midst of these societal hurricanes, our ghost shadows meet in the still in between. Ghost shadow hands extend offerings, handshake, fist bump, soft pat on the shoulder. Ghost shadow voices in silent thought bubbles above scream tiredly, I'm so tired of this bullshit. Earth body voices back on the street proffer, hey, hey. Up nod of our heads, slightest glance, us passers-by, our backs now facing each other on our ways.
Wow.
Blues and reds of black and white flash our walks on pause, we turn to see. Earth eyes reflect gazes once more, but our minds jot different notes of this pop-up audited lecture. Would that these lights signaled our victories, not violations for the speed at which we travel to attain our dreams. Blues and reds drive by. How I wish your skin was never threatened by a badge. Please know that I defend your basic right to exist. Deflect all badges with these fucking white privilege quasi-magical wrist bracelets welded on me at birth. The ones I didn't ask for, but there they are. The ones, how on these shoulders I carry all the baggage my minority female comes with too. So when you see me coming, please know I hate their weight because they are shackles of their own. Ghost shadows, high five. Ghost shadow voices rise in hallelujah. Ghost shadow shoulders drop with easy sighs to meet I and I together. Let our ghost shadows descend into our holy earth bodies here and not across the street.
Wow.
I am now the spotlight. And this is just a thing, this is a text, that I think I'm inspired a little bit by Lynn Coffin, who was a featured reader a couple of weeks ago, and maybe it was last week. And she also is in the process of writing a novel based on email exchanges with somebody. Anyway, it's partly autobiographical. It's obviously a novel. It's hard to tell what's true and what's not true. Pretty fascinating. But this was just, I have 3 son-in-laws, and I love them all, and I really like them all too. And this particular one doesn't like frou-frou things, and so I sent him a birthday gift of a small hand-blown, glass figurine that they did down at the West Seattle Avalon Glass Works. It's about, 2 inches high or so, and I've never seen it because I'd ordered it online, and it's blue and white. I just really like it. It's very whimsical. And so I sent him a message since I hadn't heard back for a week. I said, happy birthday. I hope the penguin arrived in good shape. My wife said you would hate it. I told her that's my primary criteria in buying gifts, if they will hate it. And the response, I won't read the whole response. The response was just included the sentence, hate is a pretty strong description. And that's, I think, inspired me to come back. And after I wrote the second piece, I thought, gosh, that's a nice little poem in itself. So here's the second part. Actually, I know in reality, you love it. I mean, really love it. Down deep inside, really deep inside. So deep you can't feel it yet, but you will. Someday you will. And in the meantime, you'll put it in a special place. And when it's time, the right time, you'll feel the love. Really, really feel it. And the gift will finally find its true home. And isn't that the way of life? Anyway, where was the poem before it was spoken or written? What a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Susan, for starting out with kind of a mix of what you call light verse and you know, more, I guess, dark verse. If it's light, you know, is the other dark. But, and then Joel, you and Antonia, I mean, your poetry, I loved your poetry. And then the music was fabulous. I've been wanting, Pamela knows this, and so do others. I've talked to them about wanting, I mean, because we've had this in our past, but just wanting to have more music. Because music is poetry, and poetry is musical. And I wanted more things like, up next probably will be Pamela's plays, although they've already been published on Zoom, so we may have to pay royalties or something. I saw it myself, you know. But anyway, just all forms of the oral art, you know, which is to me the broadest definition of poetry, is that artistic expression that takes many forms. So, and then the community micers, you were again delightful, and for me just thoroughly enjoyable. I think that's shared by everyone. I'm getting some, you know, nice chats along that line. So this kind of completes the poetry part, but there are times that we've had a little, what I call community chat around the experience tonight and anything else that occurs to you. And to the degree that you're interested, does anybody have anything they want to contribute to that?
I have a question here.
Yes.
So when you're at the community mic, you don't have to do poetry. You could do a short prose piece too.
Absolutely. It's,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about that.
Good.
As well as poems. So.
Yeah. We've had, you know, people have read from chapters from a whole book. I think I ended up hearing most of the whole book over a period of about 3 months.
Oh, okay.
And so absolutely, you know, anything that is oral or aural, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, A-U-R-A-L, I looked it up one time, which refers to speech and sound and all that. So that includes music, plays. I mean, I've been trying to search, we've had one stand-up comedian in our 10-year history, and that was delightful. I don't know if you remember her. I'm having a hard time remembering her name right now, but she was kind of, she must have been in her 90s at the time. I think she's still alive, but not well enough to be able to come to CNP. But she also did she started doing stand-up comedy in the comedy clubs in Seattle. And so I said, well, come and do one of your routines. It was great.
Yeah,
you know?
comedy.
So yes, it's very open.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else that wants to?
Just a quick comment, Joel.
Yes.
A shout out to and gratitude to Kuhn, who is he's been putting the teasers on me and definitely doing excellent distance learning tips for me as I, you know, organize my approach to poetry and take it as seriously as it deserves. And he's been a real inspiration in that sense, so I want to thank him again for that.
Published. He did wonderful work in kind of keeping that on the beam and making sure it got to print, and it was not always easy. Thank you so much, Jim.
Kuhn, you have quite a fan club.
Yes, he does.
No, I just publish what is good.
So how was the evening for you?
Thanks for including me. Very nice. I enjoyed it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
I loved it. I loved it, and I love the music with it. That was great. Joel and his wife, and all the shares, loved it. Great.
Yeah, I want to say thank you from Palm Springs as well, because I just moved here. So I haven't really got to know anybody here yet, or very few people. So it's been a real joy to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Oh, good.
I loved your humor in your poem there. The woman that just spoke.
Claire.
Thank you.
Yeah, loved it.
You've got to put some humor in a dark poem, haven't you?
Oh, you do, and you had it. You nailed it.
The heartbreak of the raccoons in the attic and the keys.
That wrapped up for me. You know, there's decades of marriage. You know, but in that context, had a special punch.
Yeah.
I would say if anybody has their work, poems read tonight, published somewhere, it would be lovely to see them at the PoetryBridge site on Facebook if people wanted to share.
Oh.
Well, you know what's interesting about that? I mean, Roy and I had Roy is sitting right there. He is waving. He's sitting next to Pamela. When Roy called me, and since you didn't say I couldn't say this, Roy, I'm going to say I know who Roy is, but he introduced himself as I belong to Pamela Carter.
I do. You know, we need to put her name on there. I have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I belong.
Oh yeah, I see.
But it pointed out that there are various. Last week I tried using a feature on Zoom which is share screen, but it was really difficult to manage. Apparently, I didn't know this till today. Not only was the type not large enough, and when I changed it from 12 point to 24. Several people said, "Oh, I can read it now," but for others, it took quite a while before the resolution, you know, got sharp enough to be able to read it. So that's probably Zoom, or it could be again our respective internet connection, whether it's, you know, we have enough upload or download speed and all that. One possible suggestion, and I'm kind of loath to say this because I'm enjoying every part of this, including website and organizing and, you know, putting this together. There's a lot of behind the scenes things. It's for me, an art project in itself. I realize that I'm getting a little bit stretched because I have a life other than this, even though I'm just at home all the time. But there seems like a lot going on. And so, but it would be fun to be able to see some of the poems that you have, you know, read tonight, and in a way that would be accessible to other people. So that's one way of doing it. But then that would, I haven't quite figured out a way that would be not labor intensive for me, because there's a certain amount of labor intensity that goes with that. But another possibility is just listen to the video. I mean, you can, but of course, if the audio is not good, then that doesn't really help. So you're going to say, Pamela?
Yeah, I mean, I like to see the shape of a poem and stuff too, which of course we get with the poems that the featured people share before they have their big spotlight. But I just mean if anybody wants to put them on the Facebook page, I'm not suggesting that you do more labor, and of course Susan has the you know, like she was showing us salt right there, so we can go find ourselves a copy of that.
Yeah, the audio is good tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
Generally, much better. Some of it may be Zoom is getting its act together.
That could be, yeah. And the only time I felt a little bit audio was with you, Keith, and it was a little spotty there as you started, but then it seemed to settle down. So when it does that, I kind of think it's more Zoom, because if it was our internet connection, it's not as likely. But in any event, we're doing the best we can under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's internet connection is a little different, and I know our house is not great. I was actually getting warning signals a couple of times, so it was
Okay.
probably my own internet.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. But it finally settled down. You tamed it, so that's good. Okay. Anything else? Well, thank you
you.
so much. It was just wonderful tonight. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to next week. And I have no idea who that is, but I think your suggestion about posting on Facebook is really easy. You can just, it's easy to do, but you have to be on Facebook. I'm only on Facebook. I don't like Facebook. I don't have anything to do with Facebook, but I got on Facebook so we could have a Facebook page for PoetryBridge. And people have been doing this. They've been posting their poems and links to other things that they're doing and so forth, as well as content. So if you're not on Facebook and you're not a mortal enemy of it or a Luddite, you know, when it comes to that, all that kind of stuff, and you're on it, and you're not on the PoetryBridge, I encourage you to get on it and then to join it. You know, you have to join and request because it's a group, and of course I'll okay it, and then you can post poems and you could post your poem.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Let's all just declare poetic victory tonight. Night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leopoldo.
And look after yourselves.
Good night.
Yeah, take care.